the Pediatric Epilepsy Podcast. I'm Christy Grease here with my co-host Daria Herrera, and we are so excited today that our guest is a part of our Mickey's Miracles family. We're so honored to have her here. She works alongside of our warrior families, and we're inspired by her. More on that later. But Dr. Yvette Adalba is no stranger to service. She is previously served as the executive director for the Nevada Child Seekers, a nonprofit that helps law enforcement and families find missing children. She also served as a client specialist at the North Las Vegas Care Center, a rehabilitation and skilled nursing operation. She served as a lecturer at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, where she graduated with her BA, master's, and now her doctorate a few weeks ago, which she achieved despite working full-time, being heavily involved in the community, being a single mom to two amazing girls, and working with our warrior families on a daily basis. She's a tremendous partner in the work we do, an advocate for the families we serve, and an inspiration to us all. Thank you so much for being here, Yvette. We appreciate you. We appreciate you being our family services and programming manager. And thanks for being on the podcast that you hear all about, but now you get to join us and be on it.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I feel so honored.
Well, we know you're on the front line with our warrior families every day, and it's been a journey. I've really appreciated watching you be impacted and emotionally affected by our families as you continue to work more and more with them on a daily basis. Can you tell our audience about your experience with them? And is there anything that you can share with us about their general state of mind when you speak to them on the phone?
Yeah, absolutely. When we first get, the inquiry, right, asking for assistance, typically they will share with us a little bit of what's going on, right, with their child, the efforts that they have made so far in their medical care, and, to learn from the get-go, right, the anguish and just at times the frustration, right, that a lot of our families are experiencing. To me, it's so it's urgent, right? It puts me in a state of, okay, we need to get them connected, to Dario, to Christy. We need them to, move forward with, potentially getting as much information from them in order for us to determine, what are the next steps, right, that we can help them with. But initially, it's that sense of urgency. And I could, I could feel it. I could feel it in their, whether the inquiry is coming in through an Instagram message or a Facebook post or direct email, I can just feel it, the intensity, the, hey, I need help, right? My child, my baby needs help. And so, it's been an amazing process for me. I was new to the epilepsy world, and to learn along the way everything that it entails has been such an amazing journey. Mickey has been such an inspiration, throughout this whole process, and just pushing me to learn more, right, about epilepsy awareness and how I can help our families. So, when I first meet with a family, or I try to make contact with them, also, via text or via phone call, depending on the situation. And then once we connect them to you, Christy, from there, we then follow up, right, in regards to anything else that they might need. And, the feedback, that we receive afterwards is just so fulfilling, to know that, that their baby is now connected to a top, doctor, whether it's at Seahawk or at, Dallas, Medical Center or whatnot. And, to hear and to learn, from the families, from the mothers, from the dads, that, hey, their baby is getting the medical attention that they need, is just, one of the best days ever.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Dario, did you want to jump in there?
Yeah, I wanted to add a couple things. First is, I've seen your growth in the epilepsy work, with the parents, and it makes me, as executive director, it makes me very comforted and gives me, a great level of hope, because I know we have, our families being cared for, not just by Christy, but also by, a very capable, empathic person with the background that you have. I mean, you are a licensed social worker. You have worked in client care and healthcare and in really adverse situations. So that gives me a lot of hope. And the second thing I wanted to say was I saw that process you're talking about in a family who helped recently, and obviously we're not going to share names because of patient privacy, but their appointment was 4 months away at a lower level pediatric epilepsy center. And because of your work and you being so thorough in your follow-up and in gaining the information and in pushing me to follow up and, keeping us, working on the same page, we were able to get that family into a level 4, 3 months sooner than they otherwise would have, so that, our mission is to get families into a level 4 epilepsy center as urgently as possible. And because of the work you do, that's what we do. And it's exciting, it's fulfilling. And it gives me, a lot of just comfort that our families are being cared for, and, that these precious lives are being watched out after by Christy, by myself, by you, and certainly, being able to be of support for the parents that we serve, our warrior parents, is a dream, really. So thank you. It's been a wonderful experience to work alongside you, and I've known you since you were in high school. This is full circle for me, to see, and now you're a doctor, right? You're a PhD from the Urban Affairs at UNLV, my alma mater, and we get to work alongside one another every day to save babies' lives. It's really, it's a little bit surreal, but in many ways, I knew you were destined for greatness the moment I met you as a high school student, and I'm just proud of you to see that, that promise I saw in you has been more than fulfilled.
Well, thank you, Dario. It definitely has been such a pleasure to work with you. And, especially in this type of work, like I mentioned, it's just amazing. When I learn more about the families and the babies, and it's just, sometimes I have no words to describe, especially as I learn as a mother of two, to learn what the challenges that these mothers are facing with their babies. And I can just imagine, right, empathizing, with them on a daily, weekly basis is something that has also helped me, really grasp a better understanding of what they're going through, and being able to also give them support, that they might need, whether it's a, hey, you got it, we're here for you, like I mentioned earlier, or just checking in, sending a message and saying, hey, just wanted to check in, and check and make sure that everything's good, and for us to let them know that they're supported, but then for them, most importantly, to know that they have a community, right, that has their, that they're supported by, is so important in this line of work.
I love that you talked about urgency, right off the gate, that's what you noticed. That's why I founded Mickey's Miracles, because I didn't have any idea the sense of urgency that epilepsy had, but in particular pediatric epilepsy, because of the growing brain of a child. And that is such an important part of what we do, is getting the word out that not only can epilepsy kill, damage your child's brain forever, but there's an urgency in getting to that level of care, and having you a part of the front lines, communicating with me to these families, letting them feel safe, letting them feel, a lot of people just want to feel heard. They think that they're at the end of the line, and then we're here going, no, there are other options out there. Let's walk through this, and we're going to hold your hand. And that is something I would have done anything to have when I went through it, because I didn't have a Mickey's Miracles. And I, you know, I know that you've been involved in leadership positions at various nonprofits and community organizations. And you've even taught classes at the university on social responsibility. How does that experience show up in the work you do for Mickey's Miracles?
You know, it's understanding, right? I mentioned empathy, right? Being able to empathize, and being able to guide, right, families through the process is so important. Oftentimes they're in a state of, like you mentioned, this might be my last rope, right? And when we and when I'm able to let them know that no, hey, there's still hope, right? I think a lot of it has to starts with being able to provide them with an understanding that, you know, here are a few more steps that you can take, and then also help guide them, right, to other resources that they could find useful in their journey. And so for me, that's where a lot of this kind of translates, right? And I'm able to transition and pivot with the, you know, my experience in higher education, and then also in some of my other leadership roles. As you mentioned earlier, you know, as a former executive director of a nonprofit, I worked very closely with the families of missing children. So, you know, a lot of them were coming to us, you know, in a state of, you know, they felt hopeless. Some of them, you know, were lost in, you know, crisis mode, right? So a lot of what we had to do was really get them to a point of, hey, you know what, you're here, you're supported. You know, there's a whole community that is ready to help you along the way. And that's what Mickey's Miracles is all about, right? And so, you know, the fact that I've worked with families in crisis has definitely helped, you know, just gain a better understanding. And then also, you know, there's times where families, sometimes they just need resources. So being able to learn about the, you know, various resources out there, you know, for folks, and, you know, we've helped families even in other countries. And so the fact that we're connected as well on a global scale is very helpful. And the fact that we're able to provide those resources and information.
And I did fail to mention that on top of everything else you've done, you're a licensed social worker. You got your bachelor's in human services counseling. And this was so pivotal for Dario and I when you came on, that we had somebody who not only had a heart to serve and the empathy, but then you have the background, the knowledge, experience, the training, the education to support these families on a deeper level. And as we know, we just closed out May, which was Mental Health Awareness Month. We know these families are on the brink sometimes of a breakdown. I mean, I know that I went through quite a few, and so having you there is so important. And I want our families to know that, like you said, if we don't have the answers, we don't take no for an answer. We're going to help you get to a place, you know, where we can find those answers for you. We won't stop. And I can honestly say, in all the years that we've been doing this, we've never had a family that we weren't able to, I mean, get some support for. I mean, I know that I think you were a part of the family in Canada that we helped. You know, we had to source a drug for this child, which is not, that took it all the way to the Prime Minister of Canada to make it happen. So, and you know, if you're a mama bear or a papa bear, like there's nothing, you know, we'll go to the ends of the earth. So to know, which I didn't know that you had worked with missing family, you know, having missing children and working with those families, I can't even fathom what that experience was, but I know that it definitely lent itself to the work you do now, and our families get a benefit from that. And Dario, I just think that's so awesome.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, when I first met Eve, obviously I met her when she was in high school. I'm older than she is. You can tell by the gray. But you know, I've also experienced her as a leader in the Latino youth leadership movement. I've experienced her as an advocate in the community, and I knew she had that skill set. And one of the things that I'd love for Yvette to talk on a little bit, because she's had a lot of experience in this. I think personally, as a single mom that's overcome some adversity, and in your role as Nevada Child Seekers Executive Director, the role of mental health and caring for yourself, and like paying attention to the anxiety, the depression, the uncertainty, the stress, the lack of sleep, the lost appetite, the hopelessness, if you will. I'd love for you to kind of talk through that, because it's a conversation that we're increasingly becoming a part of. There's been such a stigma around mental health conversations, and we had a family that we were very close with, make a very tough decision for their child, and the mom was very vulnerable and sharing openly the kind of mental health stuff she's dealing with. And we've had other conversations around that as well. That was the topic of our last podcast. And I know, Mental Health Awareness Month is May and it's behind us now, but I'd love for you to touch upon, the importance of mental health and having an open conversation and finding, an opportunity to really make that part of the entire conversation when it comes to continuum of care.
Absolutely.
I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
Absolutely. I think right now, the nation is facing a health crisis, right? I mean, it's been over a year, right, since the pandemic, but we're still having to navigate a lot of transitions in our respective lives. And it's not only limited to a physical realm, right, but also composed of a mental responsibility, and having to juggle so much. And at times, families, individuals, we're all, caring for someone, right? And there's times where we forget to care for ourselves, right? Our own mental health. A lot of us, whether we experience a traumatic childhood or a trauma in our adolescent years, early adulthood, or our adult years, or even currently, we're all facing a challenge, and that will take a toll on our mental health. And so, being able to have more of spaces for people to speak about mental health, right? Whether it's at a community level or it's at an individual level, right? With families and friends, that's the only way that we're going to diminish the stigma, around mental health. We've heard this, phrase before, and I think in the last year, it's been said a lot, it's okay to not be okay. And that's very true on so many fronts, right? And for me as a professional, as a mother, and it's been so important for me to say, okay, how am I doing today, right? Doing that like mental check-in every morning. Because if I'm not good for myself, then I'm not going to be good for my children. I'm not going to be good for the families that we help, with Mickey's Miracles and so forth. And so, and mental health really, it is. It comes in waves as well, right? We could be good one day, and then suddenly wake up and we're like, oh no, I'm in a funk today.
I don't understand how you can. It's so bizarre how I could be flying high and things are, and then some days I just wake up and I'm blue. And one thing I've learned, especially after my father passed, I did this weird thing, and I don't know why I did it, but I just gave myself this like permission to mourn him. I said, I'm going to give myself 1 year to mourn my dad. Now, we all know that the mourning and grief process is a whole journey in of itself, and you're always shocked and surprised, but I'm still surprised by how things can be going so good and life is good and there's no reason why I'm blue, but just some days you're off. And I think giving that permission slip and then having those tools in your toolbox of like, okay, check in. We all have those different things, that we can do to help us. And then sometimes it's just not doing anything at all. But I don't know. I just still find that so bizarre how it could just hit you with that so unexpectedly.
Right. And that's where it's important for us to recognize and to identify, right, various coping mechanisms that are going to help us through that process, right? So if you wake up in a funk, it's like, okay, what can I do right now or today that will help me, right? And sometimes it might just be I need to unplug a little bit earlier than usual, right? Or schedule some time, to go outside or do some exercise or whatnot, right? We all have different things that will help us, right, kind of navigate through those days, those difficult days. And I always share with, friends and family that, I brace myself for, the challenging days, and then I embrace the good days, right? When I have good days, I make it a point, to say, wow, today's a really great day, and just be grateful about that, right? Because, who knows, right? There might be, the next day where we might get hit with some unexpected news, and that, and I'll share this, last week, and I know I shared this with Dario. Last week I woke up Monday, kind of went on my day, and right before noon, I got the news that a close friend of mine had passed away. And so it kind of just hit me, right? Like, whoa, wait a second. No, there's no way, kind of like the shock, but then also the denial, right? And, when I communicated to Dario the next day, I said, I just need that time, right now I'm not okay. And I took the time to the rest of the week to just reflect, and then focus on what I needed to do, right? And even when I got the news, this is another important component to, in regards to just when we're working with families, but then also being in having a family, is communicating with your children, right? What is going on. Sometimes, depending on their age, they might not quite understand, but my 5-year-old, she, noticed that something was going on, and I was crying, and I just shared with her, a good friend of mine, passed away, and mommy needs some time right now. I'm going to cry, and I'm probably going to cry, and you're going to see me cry throughout the day, but I just feel very sad, right? And for her, it was, the way she responded was in such a loving way, but then she also knew that I needed my space, right? And she, in her own 5-year-old way, offered me some comfort words and some hugs periodically throughout the day. And that's something that, communication, right? We talk about mental health, we talk about the importance of breaking the stigma, right? And having these discussions around mental health with families, friends, but sometimes we need to also make sure that we communicate, right, how we're doing and our emotions with the closest members of our family, in order for them to really understand how they could, so they can also understand, what they can do, and how they can take part, in that healing process. And so,
and you're modeling for them that, how, it's like we come from, at least my parents and grandparents generation, where you don't show that emotion.
Right.
You go into the room and you cry, but you're modeling for your girls that there's a healthy way to go about it. And I have to remind myself, especially things that I've always been, I don't want to mess up the apple cart, and I don't want to upset other people. But I've learned, as I've grown as a leader, as a mama bear, how important it is to have the courage to step into those difficult conversations, or step into my own mourning, and that journey, that my kids are watching. They see everything. They see what you don't say, and so you're modeling that.
And they feel everything too. They don't just see it. They really feel it, and they internalize it.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes. Exactly. And it makes me just think about what kind of came up for some reason, is that even today, we see these every single day. We're inundated with these, visions of these children seizing, like, all the time. Right. And I remember one person said to me, you can't be in this business and have a nonprofit if you're going to get emotional. And I just kind of looked at her, and I was like, I don't want to be in this if I don't get emotional and it doesn't affect me. Like, it does affect me, and that's okay that it affects me. It also makes me feel guilty sometimes when I see these children suffering, and my daughters seizure free and doing amazing. But then I'm like, no, like I'm grateful for this. And this is an opportunity to, as a gift to other families, that gratitude, I think, is the doorway to abundance and wholeness. And it doesn't mean everything's perfect, but you talking about gratitude and embracing the good days, embracing, I love that. That's a tweetable moment.
Yeah.
Because that's so true, that gratitude is a part of the equation to be resilient and get through this. And it just may be being grateful that your child, goes the day without a seizure, or
Right.
you get a smile out of them. I remember
Right.
Mickey being on so many meds that she lost her smile and her giggle. And that was like
Right.
the most beautiful thing about her. And so parents are they're scared, they're angry. I know
Right.
they're angry. Why me? Why my child? And I think, like you saying that, giving them the opportunity to do a check-in and incorporating their tribe, like husband, children, like whatever you need to do to get that space, so you can clear your head and just breathe a little. That sounds so helpful, Yvette.
Another term that I wanted to share with you, and we don't often hear about it, or I think even talk about it, is called secondary trauma. It's also known as vicarious trauma, or compassion fatigue, stress. It could also be even referred to as even PTSD, right? Post-traumatic stress disorder. And it represents a series of a group of related problems for people who care for and even hear about or witness the intense suffering of others, right? So what you just pointed out, Christy, right, it reminded me of that a lot of us in this line of work, or even as caregivers, right, for children who, like you mentioned, are seizing every day, that could be very traumatic, right? So we're experiencing that secondary trauma, and that could really affect our mental health, right? And this is where it's so important to establish and really put, in place, different coping mechanisms, right, for self-care. Like you said, right, if they smile today, let's celebrate that, right? And however you want to celebrate it, let's do it. And then, and so forth. So, secondary trauma is real, and, it happens to, we all experience it at different levels, but being aware that it is such a thing, that happens. So that way we're able to then, be able to cope with it, right? And it really does make us resilient. You touched on resiliency, and, I love that, because I think every single one of us, are so resilient in our own ways.
I'd love to jump in on that, because you're one of the most humble people I know, and your career speaks for itself, and your commitment to service and commitment to community and commitment to self improvement and growth is nothing short of inspirational, for me. And I know we're running short on time. This is usually a 30-minute program, but I want to get this question in. How'd you do it? I mean, you not just did you get your BA, not just did you get your master's. I know you're the first, a Mexican American within your family to go to college and to graduate. And on top of that, you didn't stop there. You got your master's. You just got your PhD, and you've done it all. Having a job as a lecturer, working with us, your community activism, and caring for, two, girls, mostly on your own. I know your personal story more than most. I won't share it here. But tell me about that, because talk about resiliency, and I think it can also serve as a reminder to our families. And we have so many moms or single moms dealing with children with epilepsy, because the dad, just couldn't cope, right? Didn't have the strength, didn't have, whatever, fill in the blank, to stay. I mean, we know Kelsey's situation. As soon as the dad heard, the baby was born with, epilepsy, he bolted, right? So I really want to hear your answer, because I think it can serve as an inspiration for, the families that we serve, in particular the moms who really in many ways carry the burden, for the family and for childcare. So I'd love to hear how you've been able to do it, my friend.
That's the $1 million question, Dario. It really is, you know.
I do it?
Right, exactly. Let me think. We have how many minutes? No, I'm just kidding. You know, I think for me, it was always when I'm told no, you can't do it. That's really what fuels my fire.
Yes, girl.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I can't do it. Let me just prove you wrong. And I think that's really where I get my motivation, and my sense of just you know, just breaking down barriers, right? You know, growing up in a family, both my parents are migrants, and you know, their level of education is elementary school level. And, you know, to know their story and to learn, you know, the roots of my family, and that education is so important for them. You know, that's really what inspired me to just keep going, despite the challenges and the barriers that came along the way. And for me, it's also been just trying to, I didn't want to be a statistic. And for me, that has also been another motivating factor to just keep on going. It's not easy as a single mom of two. You know, I've had my fair share of challenges, but, you know, it's about taking it one day at a time. It really is. I know it sounds easy. It sounds easier said than done. But, you know, really being in the present, in the moment,
Yes.
you know, setting goals, and just making sure that I also have a tribe, you know, and a support network that, you know, that I can reach out to. And when I'm not okay, I can say, hey, I'm not okay. You know, I need a moment here, or I need some time, right, to catch up on, you know, my schoolwork or whatnot. And so for me, it's been really being able to identify, you know, people in my life that that are supporting me, that will support me. But more so than anything for me, it's always been that drive of, I don't want to be a statistic. I will not be a statistic. And if you tell me no, you have something else coming for you.
Wow,
Well,
three of us have a lot in common, don't we?
Yeah, I think you failed in not becoming a statistic. The difference is you became a very positive statistic.
You're
you know,
an inspiration.
There aren't a lot of, you know, Latina women, single mom of two, who've, you know, accomplished the professional achievements, let alone, you know, reached their doctorate. You know, so I can't tell you how proud I am of you, and how, you know, just witnessing you sometimes from afar, sometimes from up close. You know, what a treat it's been to see, you know, the arc of your growth, and to know that you're on the front lines with their families every day, and helping really care for their children in the work that you do through your advocacy. Is really, it just makes me so happy and proud, you know.
What an asset you are to our families. Yeah. You know, when we had that conversation, I think it was last week after your graduation, and guys, on her Instagram and her social media, I mean, she has all these ribbons and these cool hats. And, oh my gosh, and her daughters in tow. And I thought about, wow, what an inspiration. And I asked you, okay, so what's next? Like, what is your goal? What is your vision? And what you told me was so amazing, and it's so aligned in the work we do, particularly in legislation, and how we are passionate about creating legislature to protect children struggling and fighting epilepsy, making sure that they have the level 4 center within reach to go to for treatment and diagnosis. And will you share with our audience what you said? And I think it's going to be such an amazing alignment with what we have, the strategic plan for Mickey's Miracles, in that realm.
Absolutely. Yeah, so my doctorate is in public policy, and I am now, you know, now that I graduated, you know, really wanting to transition to make changes, you know, in our children's lives, especially when it comes to mental health, and being able to, you know, make the changes that are most needed, you know, for our children's care, whether it's in the epilepsy world, right, or in other you know, spaces. But for me, you know, children are of my utmost importance and really the center of my work, children and youth. And so I really I'm looking forward to working together, to change, policy, and to bring about, a more positive environments, for our children, so they can get the level of care that they need, whether it's medical, mental health, and so forth.
So in that, you'd be writing policy legislature to affect changes in the healthcare, not only in Nevada, but possibly, once you can kind of create something and you can see that it works in a state, then it's amazing because it can be an example, just like what we're seeing with epilepsy education, started in one state and now it's sweeping across the country, where states are being required to educate within the school system how to take care of a child suffering with epilepsy. And you're going to be able to do that, and I think you said you wanted to write policy for mental health to provide these resources for families where it's not there. I mean, the government in our country can't depend on little nonprofits to carry all of that, We need to work together. And by you being a part of that process of creating like a solution that could have these effects, that can affect millions of people, that's just so cool and exciting.
Yeah, it's definitely my focus is comprehensive K through 12 mental health curriculum in schools. So if we're able to teach our children as young as 4 or 5 years old, about their emotions and feelings, and carry that on, and so they can carry that on, throughout their lives, I think that's going to make a huge difference and a huge impact. And as they grow up and they face challenges and barriers, they're able to learn and know from a very young age, what to do and how and really, how they can, become even more resilient, right? And so that's one of my passion. I would call it passion projects, but I'm also open, to working alongside other policymakers, as I mentioned, to create change and make a difference in our community and hopefully across the nation.
Based on your answer about how and why you are so steadfast in your commitment and dedication, about being told no, is this where am I supposed to tell you you can't do it? It can't be done. You don't have what it takes.
Scare her.
Yeah. I don't
now Dario's going to grill me every day, send me a message and telling me no.
That's so funny. This is random, but it reminds me of the Saturday Night Live skit about the Peloton, and it was called something I can't share on here, but they had reversed it, and it was about negative, like, are you motivated by somebody telling you can't do it?
Right.
So, did you see that? It's so funny. You guys should Google it.
Yeah, I have some friends like that. We call them the anti-Tony Robbins. You're like, they're
yeah, that's funny.
Dream killers.
Yeah.
Bring a dream killer around and it'll motivate you anytime. Well, Doctor, I should call you. Thank you so much. I am personally, as a woman and a mother, inspired by you. I thank you for being a partner in this work and being on the front line with our families. For them to have you, so educated, so resourced, so emotionally intelligent, and be able to be right there for those families on the first reach out is amazing. It's such a blessing to have you. Congratulations on all your achievements. Thank you for your insight today, in particular on mental health. I think we could have a whole nother podcast diving into some of those detailed tools, because I know that's something that we're dealing with epilepsy, but then on top of that, there's all these other factors, and that's such a huge thing for families to navigate, not only as an adult, but then helping your children navigate. And I'm just excited to see what you do, what you accomplish next, and being your partner in this work is such an honor. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you both. Thank you, Dario, for always believing in me, and Christy for your unconditional support, and for Mickey, really, she is such an inspiration. I love her, and I can't wait to meet her one day. Yes, I love seeing all her pictures and her videos, and she really is such a gem. And so, thank you for sharing her with us and the entire world. She, and the Mickey's Miracles is really making a huge difference and impact in so many young people's lives.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, this will end this episode of the Pediatric Epilepsy Podcast. If you have any questions for Dr. Yvette Idalva, please put them down and let us know if there's anything that you want to see next. If there's topics that you want us to focus on, let us know. We'll make sure we bring that to you. This is a gift for you. This is for our entire community to come together, listen to the best of the best on all these important topics surrounding pediatric epilepsy. And we just hope that you enjoy it and you get out of it everything that we do. And with that, we'll end this episode. And thanks so much for joining us. Be well.
Thank you.
Thank you.